Hello and welcome, everybody. Today we have Joe Markman, principal of Markman Capital Insight, a technology-focused financial research company based in Seattle, Washington. Mr. Markman brings an entrepreneurial background and valuable insights into the great digital transformation, which they believe is the single most important business development of the century. At Markman Capital Insight, he directs operations, enhances customer. Oh, one second. Oops, sorry, I had a little delay there. He directs operations, enhances customer experiences, and drives growth, positioning the firm at the forefront of sectors such as AI, cloud computing, and connected technologies. His hands-on approach and keen market strategies equip him to guide investors through the complexities of the digital economy. Joe, the floor is yours. If you need anything, I'll be right here.
Sounds great. Hey, well, hi everybody. I know I can't see any of you, but I know you can see me, and thank you for tuning in. I'm really excited about today. A little bit before we dig in, I want to say that I'm ending with a little piece about fusion power, and it's a little bit of a niche subject that I personally am very into, so I'm really excited to share it with you. Anyways, so today what we're talking about is the intersection of AI and power, and where the next alpha lies. So what we're going to go over today is three buys that we think you could buy today, two picks that are in the nuclear section that we don't think you should buy today, but should definitely look out for. And then last, we're gonna end with a pick if and when fusion becomes a reality. So overall, three picks, three for now, three for later. Well, actually, four for now, two for later. Anyways, so my name is Joe Markman. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. You may recognize my last name, Markman. John Markman is my father, and he has been a staple at the money shows for the last 15, 20 years. And he started our company, Markman Capital, and I've had the awesome experience, and I'm very grateful to be able to join him and now kind of continue on in educating do-it-yourself investors, much like all of y'all, in the digital transformation and what stage we're in right now. So, what stage we're in right now is obviously the AI power stage. And one thing that's kind of crazy about it is everyone's talking about it as if it's a bubble. It's not. The bubble hasn't come yet. The bubble probably will come, but it's not in any of the companies that are out there yet, so you don't need to worry about it. So one thing I kind of want to go over right now is everything in the AI uh, kind of universe feels like a gold rush. It's a mad rush to basically build the mines or build the factories. And what's kind of interesting about it is everyone's chasing these chatbots or image generators because they're the flashy new things. But the smart money knows exactly where to go, and the smart money is building the infrastructure, selling picks and shovels, and powering railroads. So those railroads run on massive energy. It's clean, scalable, and always on. It's very important for these data centers to always be on. So redundant, reliable, clean power is the future for these processes. And we're going to go over a couple companies that do go into all these things. So what I want you to do today is to stop thinking like a prospector and start thinking like an architect. Stop looking at the gold nuggets coming out in the forms of chatbots or image generators or videos, and we want to look like an architect. We want to see what the full system looks like from the top to the bottom, the full scale of it, and where you should put your money today. All right, so before I dive into the stocks, I want to back up just for two slides here so you get the full context of what the AI revolution is really about. All right. So the way we like to look at it in market capital is it's like a pyramid, and every single layer is interlocked and intertwined. It is essential that all these different steps play together, and they all play off each other. So you want to think of the AI stack as a living ecosystem, and the visible canopy is the apps and the models. The best real world example really is Tesla's self-driving, but that's kind of the canopy. That's the visible portion of it. But the real life is in the roots. It's the energy systems, it's the silicon chips, it's the data pipelines, and it's the platforms that feed energy and create we'll get into it, but floating point numbers that allow us to have the fruits and the canopy. And we break this down into seven interlocking layers. This being said, two of them get combined for the graphic, but what it really lays out to is energy and power goes to hardware. That's the AI. That's the chips, the networking, the memory. Then it's the AI-driven data infrastructure. So that's the management and the processing of all this data. Then it's the enterprise AI platforms. Those are things like ServiceNow that people, allow companies to actually interact with the AI without being AI companies. And on top of that, these two are combined into the top of the pyramid, but it's really AI in biotechnology and medicine. That's huge. It's AI in industrial automation and robotics, and it's AI in autonomous vehicles. Those are all in that top precipice of the pyramid. So each layer builds on top of the last, and if you miss one, the whole tower topples over. So that way, as an investor, what you really want to see, especially right now, is you really want to be investing in the foundation because the rest of the stack is just coming online with barely any products really visible in that top, top section. Um, so for the purpose of today, we're going to keep this small. We're actually only going to talk about the foundation here today. So layers one through four, not for this presentation, but I do have ways for you to reach out at the end if you want to learn more about these other layers, which we are investing in now. All right. So what we do here at Markman Capital is we don't chase headlines. My father John was an investigative journalist. He actually won two Pulitzer Prizes. So he was in the newsrooms creating the headlines. We know not to chase them. So what we know and what we try to look for are those 20-year power contracts. Companies that literally have contracts to power AI data centers for 20 years at a time. We also know that the AI chatbots, those are just features, not companies in themselves. We also know that beneath every GPT is a data pipeline, a memory stack, and a power surge. And if AI is the train, the infrastructure is the track, and we want to own the track so that every train pays you. So yeah, we don't chase hype, we invest in infrastructure, and that's where the returns compound, and that's how you and I can both win in our own investing journey. Okay, so the scope of this is ridiculously large. By most common estimates, today the entire pyramid, the entire stack will be worth around 20 trillion in market size by about 2040. And we at Market Capital have been investing in this for a long time. It wasn't always called AI. It's been called machine learning. It's been called algorithmic uh, trading or algorithmic equations, but it's been a thing. It's always been a thing. Just now we have a different way to look at it and different chips that accelerate this process. I'm just going to plug one thing here just in case you're interested and want to dig into the stack more. But we do send out a free daily letter on our Substack. It's Markman Capital Insight at substack.com. All right, so let's dig right into layer one, energy and power. So AI doesn't just run on code. It runs on electricity, massive amounts of electricity. And these massive data centers are voracious power consumers. Nuclear is having a renaissance because of this, just to meet the power demands, and because AI needs clean, uninterrupted baseload energy. Nuclear is having a comeback. So what I want to show you on this slide is just basically what happens here. So what an AI factory does is it turns electricity into computation. And if you can see on my screen here, I'm not sure if you can see my mouse or not, but the portion labeled AI factory, literally what we do is we take electricity, we put it through GPUs, it turns them at GPUs and CPUs, and depending on the make of model, it outputs a thing called a floating point number. And these floating point numbers can then be redeemed by different software and analytics and different chips to then output thought. So energy goes in, floating numbers get produced, thought or computation comes out the other side. And it's pretty linear. The more uh, energy that goes in, the more floating numbers that can be produced, the more computations that can be done. Um, Jensen Huang, he has the CEO of NVIDIA has a pretty famous quote, an AI factory is the data center that inflows electricity and outflows intelligence. It is um, a whole new intelligence and fact and industrial revolution. So if we follow the logic that more electricity equals more floating point numbers equals more computation, it makes sense that at some point, and I'm going to allude to something here, at some point, we're going to be using those computational units to figure out how to make cheaper and better energy. Because if we can then basically have a flywheel going of electricity becoming cheaper and more flowing numbers coming out, it just makes sense to invest those computational units back into physics equations for cheaper and better energy. Um, but that's really how floating numbers work. That's how they're produced. And this is a very basic level, but this is really how this is the nuts and bolts of what everyone's fighting over is basically floating number output per watt of power. That's the ratio you want to think of. So when people are fighting over different chips, different companies are like, well, this GPU, or I know I have friends who are always trying to pitch me AMD. AMD, so this is a little bit of a side, but NVIDIA owns about 92% of the chip market, and it's because their watts in and floating point number out ratio is the highest. That's basically what everyone's going for, is that ratio of watts to floating point number output. It's really that simple. And NVIDIA controls the entire stack for the most efficient processes. There are some edge cases in certain inference areas where AMD might make a slightly better chip, but it's inconsequential. All right, so you're here for power and AI. I'm gonna take a quick drink of water and then let's dig into our first doc. All right. So first one we're going to dig into is Quanta Power Services. They're a specialized contractor that executes building and providing electrical power plants, renewable energy sources, pipeline infrastructure and construction, communication network and towers, and energies and basically everything in the energy industry. And when someone big wants to build a new mission critical infrastructure project, this is one of the few publicly traded companies, well, one of the few companies, but the publicly traded company that everyone calls to build their projects. The reason I say publicly traded here is because there is another company that has somehow gotten to this game. You've probably heard their name. It's Crusoe. They're the ones building Project Stargate out in Abilene. They are a privately held company. They used to build Bitcoin miners off of oil rigs, off of the oil exhaust. No one was really sure how they pivoted into AI data centers, but they did. I actually drove personally up to Abilene 2 weeks ago to visit the site. It's very impressive. They seem to be doing a good job. But for the point of this presentation, we want to invest in talk about companies that you can invest in, and Quanta Power Services is that company. So their bread and butter is really being able to organize the labor and the talent and pull through with politicians and regulations to do multi-state projects because these projects pull so much energy and they also distribute so much energy they're usually crossing state lines and very few companies can handle that. They currently have contracts and are building for data centers for Google, Amazon, and Microsoft. They're absolutely crushing it. I actually first, if you were in Dallas for the Dallas Money Show earlier this year, I actually first pitched the stock in April when it was at 245. It's now currently at 375, so it's up quite a bit there, but we think it's going to go even higher in the next 18 months. So our price target over the next 18 months is 477, which would be up 26% from current levels. All right, that's Quanta. I really like this company, and they actually have one of the coolest tickers ever too. Power. I mean, come on. All right, next up is Constellation Energy. They are the nation's leading producer of clean, carbon-free electricity. Um, they provide a lot of their services come from natural gas, which which is currently being delivered to millions of residential, commercial, and public sector customers. 90% of the energy they produce is carbon-free, and they have a goal to be 100% carbon-free by 2040. Their Constellation Energy's competitive advantage lies in its diverse portfolio of renewable energy sources and its efficient distribution network. That means they have solar, they have wind, they have natural gas, they do have some coal and some oil, but really because they have so many different sources, they can basically choose which ones to go to depending on market fluctuations and power pricing. That's better for the consumer. They also have this distribution network that's pretty unmatched and pretty unparalleled. It's this initiative they're trying to really get going. It's called the Virtual Power Plant Project. And what it does is their software allows households and neighborhoods and commercial buildings to basically aggregate all of their solar panels or whatever if they have their own power sources. But generally for this, it's solar panels and batteries. You can aggregate them together and create your own mini grid, efficiently taking you off grid, and you and your neighborhood could supply your own power. if the city goes down or if you just want to be off the grid, and they have a software and a technology and a platform that can enable it. I think it's pretty cool, especially for me. I live in Austin, Texas. I did live in Austin, Texas, and as you guys may or may not know, our power goes out maybe once or twice a year once we get that once a year freak snowstorm. And it'd be pretty cool to be able to be like during those times to pull off the grid and just subsist without interference. So again, we recommended buying this stock back in April as well. It was at 201 back in April, but now it's trading around 300. So it is up 50% since then. This being said, we do see it going up another 20% in the next 18 months, up to 360. So again, not a 20% is not nothing to sneer at. This is a great company, and I think it should be in your portfolio as well. All right. So the next and final power company I have on here is Next Era Energy. Well, sorry, power company I think you should buy now. So NextEra Energy is the world's largest utility holding company with a diversified clean energy portfolio, including wind, solar, some nuclear, and natural gas. So their real competitive advantage is they've bought a ton of utility companies. Um, they have proprietary software that's dug through all the utility companies that they've bought. And so they have 20 plus years of real raw data to help them optimize their systems and solutions that help them one scale more quickly, so buy more power companies more quickly, but also operate more efficiently depending on weather patterns, solar flares, so anything that happens that can affect the grid. They have data to back up how to actually handle it. So they're positioned way ahead of normal utility companies. And what's interesting with this is there are some now that utilities have become more of a growth market versus a staple. You know, the utilities industry used to grow at like 4 to 7% a year. Now they're all growing. Now all the companies in the energy sector are growing like growth companies, which is pretty interesting. Which is pretty cool actually. Um, but what's interesting is there are new companies trying to come online, and these guys have 20 years of data you can't fake. So they're just going to stay ahead because that's their moat is their data. What's also interesting about this one is because they own utility companies, they have regular cash flow. They have customers who, for better or for worse, can't go anywhere else. Like you really can't choose your utility pro, pro, provider, at least in most markets. And since they own them, they have regular, predictable cash flow, which they are using aggressively to drive more growth. That's why we say if AI is the engine, NextEra is building those fuel lines. Um, so it's currently about $70, and we do see it going to $106.50 over the next 18 months, which would be around a 50% increase, which is huge. So again, this is another company to watch out for. All right. So this next section, I feel like I have to put a warning in here. It's pretty special. So let's take a pause for a second. The last three companies we went over, those are for now. So that look at those, do your own research, see if those vibe with your portfolio. Maybe they make sense to add into the energy section of your portfolio. But these next two companies, they're both nuclear plays, and I don't think you should buy them today. In fact, you can't buy one of them. One of them is private, one of them is public. But they're highly speculative. But it is important to watch these companies because once they're speculative, sometimes they move out of that category. And one of the things that I like to do here at Markham Capital, and one of the things that we like to do is to watch these consistently. And we don't actually buy in before we see movement up. So if we do see it going up and it's predictable and and the pattern does behave like a true entrenched winner in their category, that's when we buy. We're kind of more momentum traders. So just put these two on your watch list. All right, so the first one is a company called Oklo. You may have heard of it. It got some press because Sam Altman is involved in some way. And anything he does, obviously in the AI era, gets press. So what's unique about their technology, what they're going after, is they're using liquid metal cooled reactors as opposed to water other sources. So it draws heat away way quicker because the heat transferring ability of a solid metal is way higher. than water. They also run on recycled nuclear waste, which is pretty neat. So the old nuclear uranium mines, they can actually take those and power these reactors. Um, the ones that are currently being produced, or the ones that are nearing full scale being active, they're aiming for 15 megawatt capacities, but they do see these being scalable, and you could mesh together up to 50 megawatts. And what this means is they're trying to have, they basically could power one of these things could power a data center. They're estimating for 10 years without interruption. So it's literally a set it and forget it for 10 years operation, which is very interesting when you think about how they're pricing these things, because it means you can actually sell 10-year contracts pretty scale, like pretty reliably. It's like, okay, we know our input costs, we know our construction costs. This will last for 10 years. So it's literally like, we'll set the margin now, set it, you're good to go. So their their vision is power, not power plants, which is pretty cool. It's pretty clean, and their competitive advantage is really trying to sell it through sell electricity through long-term contracts. Um, they actually have some other options as well. They do want to also sell, own, and operate reactors, which is interesting. And they do currently have letters of intent from a couple big companies. Um, so they have some LOIs from companies like Equinix and Switch, which are lesser known data center operators, which does signal interest in cleaner power solutions for data center. They're targeting the late 2020s, so towards the end of this decade to have the first one up. It's definitely a high upside, the risk reward ratio, high upside, but it's highly speculative until they actually get one of these things running. So Oklo, ticker Oklo, OKLO. Check it out, add it to your watch list. Does seem pretty interesting. All right, so this is another company. This one is publicly traded. It is the first publicly traded, they considered a pure play SMR company. So in this space, SMR means small modular reactor. And what's cool about this one is truly a modular. You can basically it's a make in the factory and ship to site type thing. And so each unit produces under 300 megawatts per module, but they plan to be able to scale them to multi-module plants, potentially up to 924 megawatts, which is their current operation. They know the public is scared of nuclear, so they're a safety first company. They have a passive safety feature where if anything goes wrong, it automatically shuts down and starts cooling without any human intervention or action. And they're targeting first operational projects by 2030 in Idaho. I like this one because it's backed by the Department of Energy. I'll be mentioning them in the next slide, but they're doing a cost share funding at 1.4 billion, which is approved to support initial development. Um, they're also working with some strategic partners. Fluor is a major stakeholder, Nucor, which is a steel company, and then Doosan, which is the manufacturing partner. So they do have real people, real players with they're partnering with that have taken equity stakes in this company. So this one's a real one to watch out for. The reason why nuclear is so efficient is because, or is so wanted by this data center, is it's always on, so it's 24/7, and it's a zero carbon solution for powering plants. So this one we see as lower risk versus Oklo because it's already licensed and has utility partnerships, but it's going to be slower to deploy. They're I think they're aiming for a little bit after 2030, so they may not actually be operational before um, Oklo. And then this is a big one, and I'll touch with this on the next slide, but the Department of Energy is backing them. That's a big deal. All right. So let's get into some fusion. The last industrial revolution ran on coal. The digital revolution ran on oil and gas. And the next revolution, the one that will define our century looking back, 200 years looking back, will be eventually run on fusion. So why is this? It's a few reasons. One, power is the only barrier to better AI outputs, and therefore it's reasonable to assume that the best AI models will be focused on solving this bottleneck. Like, why wouldn't they be? It's only reasonable to assume this. AI fuels fusion, fusion fuels AI. Like, why would they not spend those floating point numbers to help solve some physics problems, to help crack cold fusion. And the company that masters this, Symbiosis, will define the century. Whichever company comes up with this and is able to do this publicly will be known for hundreds, if not thousands of years from now. So there's something very important to talk about here. I don't want to get too conspiratorial. I'm just going to get into some facts of what I know about fusion. Fusion's always been around the corner for the last 50 years. If you dig into this field even slightly, you'll find that scientists who claim to have cracked it, have gotten close to cracking it, end up going dark or end up working for the government, usually in the Department of Energy or a contractor that holds tight security clearances. The pattern is ridiculously repeatable. Um, One of my favorite worldview shattering books is called A New Science of Heaven: How the New Science of Plasma Physics, which is fission, is shedding light on spiritual experiences. It's by Robert Temple. I highly recommend you guys checking out. I'm not going to dig into the thesis of the book, but what it does do is it lays out, because he's a scientist himself, lays out a full history of fusion power and where the trail ends and starts and stops, and it's pretty interesting. Long story short, he believes fusion has been cracked and silenced. And honestly, after reading his books and a few others, I also do too. So go with me on a limb here. So what does AI change about this? And if you're going to go out on a limb with me and say this is true, why wouldn't the government just come in and silence any new fusion operators again? The answer is if this is true, they might. But I think the demand for AI is too powerful, and there's AI companies right now working on fusion that are way too public. The best ones actually, one of the best ones right now is Google. Google has a fusion program, and they've been publicly sharing their results of their fusion reactors. And they've been using their AI, Google DeepMind, to help debug the system to create more sustainable fusion. And they've been having fusion run for longer and longer intervals. It's still less than a minute, but it's getting there. So, anyways, I want this topic to be fun, and I do think that the public pressure and the availability of AI will allow people to circumvent what has been silenced in the past. And when that does happen, there will be major changes. All right, so for sure, whoever cracks Fusion, that'll be a dominant company. But if we want to invest in a company today that will benefit the most from Fusion, who is that? Well, it's a company that I thought was a boring old, quite frankly, dinosaur that I thought was super unexciting. But it turns out they've flipped themselves around in the last year, 2 years, and they're very exciting. That company is Oracle. And there's a couple of reasons for this. Oracle is the data center operator between power and AI output. So they are operating the full stack of AI that outputs floating point numbers for many of their clients. There's a few reasons why. One is their Oracle Cloud infrastructure allows people to access the same database securely anywhere around the world. They also have enterprise software that connects to other enterprise software. So if you're a company that doesn't necessarily have AI as an input, you can work with them and their team to input it into your processes. So it makes turning your company to an AI company pretty easily. And this is the big one here. They actually work with countries, banks, and financial institutions for their data centers. And there's a big thing called sovereign AI. I'm not going to talk about that here. If you go to my YouTube channel at Markman Capital, I do have a short on sovereign AI, but it's basically Jensen Hong talks about it too, but essentially countries will need to have their own AI data centers that they want to remain relevant. And Oracle's the one doing those in other countries. Um, and the last competitive advantage is their global uniformity. So their cloud allows anyone to access anything at all times. And I am rushing a little bit here just because we only have two minutes left. Um, but this asymmetrical bet on Fusion, Oracle is honestly the clear winner now. They own the data center manufacturing and software label, or sorry, they own the data center manufacturing and software layer that enables energy to become AI. They own that middle. And so while everyone is fighting over chips, Oracle quietly controls the intelligence infrastructure connecting power to artificial intelligence. They truly are the train tracks for AI. And if you want trains to pay you for every ride, Oracle is essential. So I do recommend looking at Oracle. All right, guys, we only have 1 minute left, so I'm going to give you my only plugs for the show. If you're interested in the rest of the stack, so layers 1 through 4, that's everything else that's not power. We talk about that twice a week in our premium newsletter called Digital Creators and Consumers. I gave the link to our host before, so maybe you can check it out in that link. There is a special going on right now for that letter. But if you have questions or want me to talk about Fusion more, go in depth, or have any questions at all, please email me personally at joe@mcillc.net. And lastly, if you want a daily update letter that is free, where we do talk about all this stuff as well, it's markmancapitalinsight.substack.net. And I got three guarantees for it. It's the three things that Markman Capital promises. We promise to help you build wealth through the AI power boom, and we promise to provide a free, reliable, and sometimes funny insights every day of the week. So please join the thousands of others that subscribe to our uh, letters. They're all do-it-yourself investors, much like yourself. And I'm looking forward to talking with and working with any one of you that want to talk to you here. And again, if you have any questions, just email me. I'd love to answer them.
Real quick, I'll try to squeeze in one question before we
Oh,
close this
please.
out. What happens when investors discover that Okla has no supply of fuel for 5 years?
I mean, it's the reason one of the reasons why it's very, 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 very speculative. I mean, obviously it'll go down. The stock will definitely can consolidate, which is why we definitely don't recommend buying it now. It's a very risky stock, but it is one of the companies on the forefront. So the answer to that is the price will go down, and that's maybe when you take another look at your watch list and figure out if you want to buy it.
Okay, and then maybe I'll do this one more. Would you again briefly summarize the floating number ratio?
Yeah, so the ratio is basically watts of power in to floating numbers out. That's the most important ratio to look for. It's I don't have the exact ratio because it's highly dependent on the chips, the architecture, the system, and the inputs. But that's basically the equation that comes what it comes down to about chips and power. That's really the bread and butter of the Industrial Revolution is watts of power in, floating point numbers out.
Okay. Well, thank you, Joe, for being here with us today, and thank you all for joining this session. Don't forget to check out the agenda on the virtual platform, and we hope to see you in the next session. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you guys.